Going live, Smash Mouth Sports. We are now live. I am your host, as always, Preston Bailey. Like and subscribe to the channel. Cam Vieira is with me. As you can read from the show and the thumbnail and the picture, Kwame Brown for president. And some of you are like, Kwame Brown? I didn't even know he was running for president. That's a great question. He's not running for president. So I'm going to set the stage here for those that don't know. You right, Cam?
Right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, before I bring this up, while I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to give you the breakdown of Kwame Brown, just give me your opinions about Kwame Brown overall.
I think obviously he was a letdown of a basketball player, but I think he's a good man. I think a lot of the crap.
You're coming straight with fire. I'm for Kwame, and you're already like he's a letdown, he's a bust. By the way, I knew you were going to say that. We're going to get into his podcast, which is going buck wild, going crazy with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. He's approaching 350, 400,000 and growing. So go ahead and say what you're saying, and then I'll finish.
But I think a lot of the crap he gets is unjust. It's not like he was a guy who was lazy or didn't play the game hard. It just didn't work out. Sometimes it happens. The guy's made millions of dollars. He's a great man. He takes care of his mother. I think the guy's a role model. I really like Kwame Brown. I always have.
Let me tell you this all happened within the last 4 or 5 weeks, which is stunning. And I have to say, I saw one of his podcasts online because it was in my mentions on YouTube, Twitter feed. It was coming up, recommendation. So what I like about Kwame Brown, and I'll set the stage here, okay? He's 39 years old. He's 6'11 and a half, 200. He's basically a 7-foot, 290-pounder. Now, I can tell you right now, for those that don't know, he's 39 years old. He was the number 1 overall pick by the Washington Wizards in 2001. Okay? So 20 years ago. His career obviously was not LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Zion, or one of these other kind of top-tier guys, top 2, 3, 4 draft picks. Dirk Nowitzki, whatever guy you want to name. Luka. Okay, so but all these top tier guys. So he was not an all-star. He wasn't but he was primarily a role player. One of the things that I love about Kwame, let me just say this about Kwame. He was the number 1 overall pick. When I saw him, so I remember before that, the trend in the mid to late 90s, Kobe, Tracy McGrady, Kevin Garnett, Sean Kemp, years before that, there was starting to be a trend of high school guys coming in every year. Every year, high school guys every year. Typically, they would be 8th or 10th or 12th or 15th or lower. He was the first overall pick that was a high school kid. But I remember seeing his physique at 7 foot, 280 pounds of solid muscle. So even though he was a child. I don't care what he was a child. You're 18, you're a child. I understand by law, you're a man at 18, but you're a child mentally and emotionally. You got a lot to learn. There's a reason why historically we've had high school basketball. You go to 2 or 3 years in the college, and then you go to the pros because every step is a stepping stone.
Correct.
Now, having said all that, there's not a high school kid. There's not a high school kid today, regardless of what his name is, that could guard a 7 foot, 280-pound high school kid.
Nope.
With that kind of strength. And there's not, I don't care what his name is, Zion Jr., LeBron Jr., there's not a high school kid today that could guard a guy that stature. College guys would struggle, but could manage him. But NBA guys couldn't manage those guys. A guy's that big is a guy that big. The point I'm getting at is this. I love the fact that Kwame Brown, I never, in his whole 17, 18 years, his whole career, I've never heard him speak in 20 years until these last 4 weeks. Never. And what's so amazing is he calls his podcast The Bus Life. What's so amazing, the reason I love Kwame Brown is he's speaking his truth. He's like, look, Stephen A. Smith and a lot of these other pundits were like, you're a bust. Look, when you're calling somebody a bust, he talks about this. It's a harsh thing to say.
It is a harsh thing to say. Of course
Is he a bust from historical NBA standards as far as number one? Yes, you don't want your number 1 overall pick to be a journeyman, a 7th, 8th man. You don't want that. Okay?
No, of course not.
A 7 point, 4 rebound. No. You want your first overall pick to be a Hall of Famer potentially, an all-star, or at least a guy that's pushing to be an all-star. And part of the thing that he talks about, the guy that derailed his career was Michael Jordan.
Correct.
Right?
Correct, absolutely.
And because Michael Jordan was such a horrific owner and a horrific general manager, part of the problem with guys that are all-world superstar, LeBron James, Jordan, those kind of level of guys, they can't understand why nobody else wants to wake up at 4 a.m. and run 10 miles and then lift weights for 2 hours. They can't understand why nobody does that. There's a handful of guys that wake up at 4 a.m., run 5 or 10 miles, lift weights for 2 hours. There's only a small percentage of people that have that mental and physical capability to do that. Kwame was a natural athlete, and unfortunately, his confidence was destroyed by Michael Jordan. And now he's swinging the hammer. What are your thoughts on that, Cam?
No, and I applaud him. I mean, look, as great as Michael Jordan is, nobody ever denies the fact that he was a jerk. We saw it in The Last Dance. Some of his teammates to this day don't like him, don't talk to him because of how he treated them. Yeah, he helped them win, but they didn't like how they were treated. Right. So that doesn't surprise me at all. This is a guy that's played with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
And I have to say, I always liked Kwame Brown. A lot of people hate oh, he's a bust. I had never had a problem with Kwame Brown. My experience on Kwame Brown was I loved Kwame Brown because I would always play with the Lakers when it was him and Andrew Bynum as the two big men with Kobe Bryant and Derek Fisher. And Lamar Odom as a small. I love that roster because with Lamar Odom, Andrew Bynum, who's 7'3", Kwame Brown, who was 7'3", that was a massive team. I got every rebound. I got 20 points and 14 boards, which each one of those big men plus Kobe's 35. I love those teams. So I love those teams. I thought that was great. So, but no, I'm glad that Kwame Brown, and the reason I bring this up is he's saying that a lot of things that need to be said. Okay, not just for him speaking his truth. He's speaking politically.
Blunt truth.
He's speaking the blunt truth, whether you want to hear it or don't hear it. And he's 100% right. And he has the credibility to say what he's saying. Okay, I'm not going to go in and say all the things that he's saying, but I like what he's saying. And I agree with a lot of what he says, and I like that he's saying it. We need to have diversity of opinion and diversity of thought. It's not just diversity of this issue or that issue or skin color or this and the other. He's speaking his opinion, and I love it. That's what we need. You want to talk about, he should run for the Republican Party president, and I'm not joking. He should be, and he could win, and he would win. He's going to say, no, I'm not going to put up with this issue because of this, and the other. We need to do this for this community and that community for this and this and the other, and I love it. And I love that he's saying his truth because the fact is, and I'm going to end it with this. It's not going to be a long video. Like and subscribe. I'm going to end it with this. What's so great about Kwame's like, I'm not a bust. He made close to $100 million in his career. He bought his mother, who was poor. The whole family was poor, obviously. $1 million home on a golf course. He lives in $1 million home on a golf course. You could call him a bust all you want to. Any fan would love to live on $1 million home for them and their family on a golf course.
Oh, big right? That's the American dream, isn't it?
Of course. So who cares if he didn't score 30 points a game? At the end of the day, he was a journeyman. He had 1 year where he was like 6.5 points, 5.5 boards, but he had 1 year where I think he was at like double-digit points and like 7 or 8 rebounds. Here we go. Here's his best year. His best year, ironically, was his third year, 7.5 boards, 10.9 points per game. For all realistic purposes, that's a respectable year. If your backup center gets 11 points and 7.5 boards a game, you'd go with that, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Kwame for President 2024. See ya.